Oh, it has to be Portland because Portland is where I really found myself. When I think back to all the places I've ever lived in, the one that is the closest to my heart is Portland.
I'm here today with Andrea Sierra Tierra. I knew you as Andrea from We'll Never Have Paris, and I knew your zine for a long time before I ever met you. Like 20 years ago, I was reading your zine, and last September, we actually finally met in real life and sat down and, had a drink together and hung out a little bit at my house, and it was really great.
Yeah.
And now you're onto a whole new project called I Lived Here. So, how
Whole
did
new
you get
project.
started with that?
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, We'll Never Have Paris. What I really liked about that was I focused on emerging in new authors and wanting to give people a home in print because there was nothing like having a place to put your story. But the main theme for that was the one that got away, the glass half empty, We'll Never Have Paris. After taking a pause from that and working on some of my own personal zines, one day I just came up with the idea of I lived here. And it's a testament to we all have some place in our life that we have moved to and lived and loved, but ultimately had to move away from. So it's a little bit of a reference to We'll Never Have Paris with the one that got away. So with this time, the zine series is focused on a time and a place. And I I lived here on my 5 years living in Portland, Oregon, 94 to 99. So for that issue, I was able to get front and back cover art from my longtime friend, Portland resident artist Gabriel Liston. And so for this issue, I also wanted to incorporate a Chicago artist. So the front and back cover of this issue are my artist interpreter friends, Amber Cefalio and Amy Rubinger. And Amber, who does the front cover, which is Chicago Magic Hour, that photo, used to live in New York, but now lives in Chicago.
Very
Yes.
cool.
So, what do you think about this as a front cover?
I like it a lot. I love having the Chicago sign there. I love having the buildings. I love that it gives a feeling of motion in a busy city.
This is the front cover, but wait till you see the super cool back cover. So, this isn't my friend Amy's abstract art collage mixed media interpretation of Chicago Magic Hour.
Wow. That's so cool.
So, like, it's you can kind of see the Chicago skyline, and I think on
Yeah.
the left side you can almost see like an abstract CHI in yellow, and like the color scheme is completely different, but it's really got that vibrancy and immediacy of Chicago. So yeah, I lived here. New zine series, plan to publish it twice a year, and I will be looking for an author to send me their next story on a place that they lived and a time they lived there.
I'm a person that's moved around a lot in my life and I've traveled around a lot and I think a lot of creative people do 5 years here, 5 years there and every place I've lived, there's something I love about it. And certain things stick with you, and you learn as you go and all that. I was sort of curious, like, why did you choose to write about Portland? Because you could have written about anything.
Yeah, thank you. When I conceived of I Lived Here, I actually sat down and I started drafting a cover for all the places that I lived. So before I landed on deciding to write on Portland, I drafted a cover. I lived here, San Francisco. I lived here, Utica. I lived here, Portland, Washington, D.C., and New York. And after I did each of those covers with different color schemes and the same title, I did one page on each place. And after that, I realized, oh, it has to be Portland because Portland is where I really found myself. When I think back to all the places I've ever lived in, the one that is the closest to my heart is Portland. And so I think, when someone's writing a zine, they really want it to be a safe space for readers and a safe space for writers and a place that evokes something that the reader can also relate to the most. So for me, that special place is Portland. And so I would like a reader to be able to pick up an issue of I lived here and immediately think of where did they live and what was that time. And I'd like it to just kind of be a mirror for the reader to then go back into their own personal nostalgia and feel inspired, enjoy reading it, and maybe even want to write an issue of their own. That's really the where I'm going with I lived here. But how about you? How was I able to get you to sign up to write issue number two? And why did you choose Chicago out of all the places that you lived?
I was trying to figure out how I would answer that question, and you totally just answered it for me of like, that's where I found my heart. That's where I found who I was. So I was born in Wyoming, lived in Colorado, lived in Minneapolis, grew up mostly in Iowa. Then when I was 20, I moved to Chicago. And since then I've lived in New Mexico and I've lived in Baltimore. But like age 20 to age 30 is where like that's the years that I lived in Chicago. And Chicago just like opened up who I was. I met the coolest people. I got inspired. It totally like set me on my path of who I want to be. And then when I go wherever in the world, like I'm still who I am. And it all comes from Chicago for me. So
Yeah,
yeah, you said it exactly like that's and I think part of that because I know when you were in Portland, that's when you were younger, and so
yeah,
same thing for me when you're in your formative years, when you're in your 20s and stuff, like that's part of the magic also of just your age. But yeah, for me, I love every place that I go to. I've traveled to so many great cities, but you'll never convince me that any place is better than Chicago. To me, Chicago is the greatest city in the world, and even if I don't live there, I still love it and it's still part of me. So when you were talking about the zine and you sort of mentioned like, hey, I need someone to write issue two. First of all, it's such like a dream come true for me because I have so many ideas. I'm always writing stories. I don't have time to write all the things I want to write and publish all the things I want to write. So for you to approach me like, hey, if you write a zine, like I'll publish it for you and put it out for you, like, oh man, like that's like so nice. Like I wish
yeah.
I need 10 more people to publish 10 more of my zines. Like, I don't have time to write all my zines. So first of all, that was like a really great offer. But then deciding where to write about like Chicago was the front runner, and I'd sort of my trepidation was that I've written about Chicago a lot, and I mentioned that to you. I'm like, the 10 years I lived in Chicago, I wrote a bunch of zines about living there. And since then, I've written stuff about it. And then I wrote a book called Chicago Joe that takes place in Chicago. So I was like, I feel like I've already written about Chicago. But then you were like, yeah, but like, don't you have other stories you've never told? And don't you enjoy writing about them? I'm like, yes, I would actually love to write another story about Chicago. So
You did
I
not
really
need
like got a lot of things out that I had never written about before. So it was really fun.
exactly right. And you did not need much convincing for anybody who's watching this video. I just kind of gently nudged them towards Chicago. But because I knew when you told me Chicago was the place you loved and the place you found yourself, that's what you're going to want to write about. And I lived here, which is exactly how I felt about Portland. I've done a lot of writing about Portland, but when I've written about Portland, it's been more about, oh, that person that I dated in Portland, or when I was in this band in Portland, or when I hitchhiked in Ireland and left Portland and then came back. For me, having a long form issue about a time and a place that you lived, it's a love letter. It's a love letter to the person that you are and the place that you lived that you can never really go back to. And for me, without actually planning it, because I certainly didn't sit down with any kind of manifesto. That's, have you met me? That's not how I operate. But in my subconscious mind, this is yet like a handheld to we'll never have Paris. So this is an extension of we'll never have Paris. And what I loved about that zine is that it really did cross the divide. People read that zine and liked that zine that I maybe wouldn't have expected. And I feel like it opened doors for people to read and write. So I'm hoping to have the same experience with I Lived Here because everybody has a place they've lived and loved.
I love that, you know, I love encouraging new people to come forth and maybe people that have already done a bunch of writing, you know, it's a writing prompt of like, here's a new angle, here's a new idea.
Dude, when you've got something you know you want to write about, you just pick that and you write about it. So I mentioned this zine series and I said it's about a time and a place that you've lived. And people are like, "Oh, it's so specific. Oh, that's such a good prompt." And I thought, yeah, you know, you everyone should do that. Everyone should just magic eight ball it. Just sit down with something you want to write about and do it. And
Yeah,
that's what zines are for. You know
I
that.
I absolutely. And I would definitely encourage people to submit to you and bring ideas to you and if people are interested in being part of this, like start flooding in some emails and if it doesn't get for issue three, then maybe issue four, issue five, because this is something you're going to continue doing. But even if you're not wanting to do that just at home, just for yourself, you should write, you know, write one
Totally.
page about some place you lived because like it's just a fun prompt to do. So, you can still get something out of it like that also.
And while we're talking about writing and projects, I mean, I know you have a chameleon zines under your belt, but I also know you're not too far away without a couple more ready to go. So, do you have any new projects on the horizon? Sneak peek?
Well, so in relation to I lived here number two, I am going to write a new issue of Proof I Exist that will be about cars that I owned while I lived in Chicago.
Yes, I
Um,
just got to that page as I've been editing. I
yeah,
literally just did that before I came over here to you. Yes,
Yeah,
remind
because I've
everybody.
I've I've had some like because when I lived in Chicago, I had some different like art cars and different art projects. And when I was telling her my friend Mary Beth, who lives in Chicago, and she's like one of my best friends, she's like, "Oh, you gotta talk about the baby doll van, right?" And I was like, I hadn't even thought about that. She's like, "What are you talking about? Baby doll van is like a classic." Because I had this van that I glued baby doll parts to, and drove around town, and like it was like kind of like known, you know what I mean? And so. I started writing about it and then I'm like, okay, this is like way too long. So I'm just gonna write that as a separate zine. And that'll be my zine. But then when yours comes out, I'll release mine also. And then, people can, if they want to read specifically about my art cars that I used to have, they can read about that separately.
Hey, maybe a special limited edition double. I mean, two separate zines, but kind of like in one package, people.
I,
Like
I
when you
think
buy
we can work
shampoo
that
and
out.
conditioner, shampoo and conditioner when they come together
Yeah,
as
yeah,
one
yeah.
thing.
The two in one. Yeah, we can do that. I lived here, number one, all about Portland, written by you, already out, already available. Issue number two, when will that be out?
That's the one that'll be out July 1st. This does.
July 1st, and that's the Chicago written by me.
Yes.
And for people that are interested in submitting their story ideas to you for issue number three, what's the deadline for that?
Submissions deadline November 1st, because December 1st, I'd like to be working on it, and then it would be out in the stores January 1st, 2027.
Get your emails in. We'll get issue number three underway. And about a month from now, we'll have a whole new issue out to be showing you.
Yep, you got it. All
Cool.
right. I think that's
Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you, Billy. It's good to see you.
You too. Bye.